Serious, retired soldiers on Reddit, what was something that you saw or experienced that you never shared with anyone? My very first patient in Afghanistan was a 10-month girl. The father brought her to our gate asking for help. We checked her out and she is literally missing all of the skin from shoulder blade to waist on her back left side. Burned to the bone. Dad tells Terp that she tripped and got cut up by gravel. Clearly she is burned. I can smell it still today. I can remember the screech she made. The charred skin I had to remove. And that butthole just sat in the corner. Nothing I can do to right the situation other than do what I can for her. That single moment definitely set the tempo for the following 9 months. One of my best buds got drunk and fell off the barracks. They labeled it an accident. It was actually a suicide over a girl. I know, not too interesting, but I thought I'd share. Never told anyone. Always felt guilty. That sucks, bro. I've witnessed 2 suicides in my military career. One in a very similar circumstance to that. Alcohol, young men, and breakups are a very bad combination. Naval Hospital corpsman with a Marine unit who deployed to Sangir Valley, Afghanistan in 2012. I've seen a lot of casualties in my short time in the Navy, but no amount of love tissue training could prepare me for my first no crap trauma patient. It wasn't even one of my Marines who got hit. I was chilling at the battalion aid station with a group of other corpsmen getting our crap together and talking about who would survive a zombie apocalypse when we got a call that we had a patient coming in. This was about 1 week into the deployment. We had just gotten to the free on board and the majority of us were pushing out to patrol bases the next few days. I was one of the most senior corpsmen there, HM3/E4, so I was in charge of leading the team in treating this patient. We had a PA there, but he was more interested in sleeping and trusted our medical knowledge to be able to treat this patient properly. When the Vic came in, I ran outside to get a good look at the patient before he came in, and I was not expecting what I saw. He was an older gentleman, probably around 70. Hard to tell. And he had stepped on an IED and had bilateral above the knee amputations. Tourniquets had been applied and bleeding controlled by the time he got into the bars. My team attached monitors, applies secondary tourniquets, and got IV access while I secured the airway. After what seemed like seconds, we had finished our first and second assessment and were waiting in the bird when the prop-X stopped reading any vitals. I remember looking down at the man and seeing that there wasn't any life in his eyes. We attempted CPR for a few cycles, but without blood products it was useless. I called it. We were removing all of the interventions we had done when we rolled him over, and I noticed a small incision below his buttock, and above where the tourniquet was applied there was a small slice where some shrapnel had flown up and severed his femoral. This was my team I was supposed to lead, and I killed this patient because I couldn't get level-headed enough to remember the simple things I learned in CTMTCCC. I have had many trauma patterns since that day, but this one sticks to me the most. I have stumbled upon shacks full of dead and dying people. Had friends get shot and blown up, but my first casualty haunts me every night. I have since used this particular patient as a learning mechanism now that I am a seasoned instructor of TCCC, so that hopefully my students don't make the same mistake. To be fair, you didn't kill the patient, the IED did. With those kinds of wounds at his age, I can't imagine that he could have made a decent recovery anyway. I doubt these words will help at all, but I hope that time and perspective allow you to heal from this. I served in the military here in Finland, as required by law, and there was this guy who chain smoked a lot and we called him Skorsten, Swedish for chimney. His father had killed his mom and then hung himself while Skorsten was young. Skorsten was always depressed, but he got along and we were good friends. Then 5 years after we got out, I get a message from an army friend who says that Skorsten had hung himself because his girlfriend had left him for another guy. I've accepted that there was nothing I could have done, but it still haunts me. Sometimes when I go out for a smoke, I still remember how he would ask me for a cigarette because he had misplaced his own. So I'll light a cigarette for him and place it on the side of the ashtray. That's my way to remember him. Danish army medic here. The constant stream of abused children in Afghanistan, usually burned with hot water, or even worse. I still have nightmares about pointing my weapon at little kids. I'm terrified to have kids because of it. Joking answer, a crap ton of dongs. Seriously, infantrymen are like little kids, always running around butt naked. Serious answer. We were ordered to shoot bayonet any bodies we came across because the militia had a habit of playing possum only to kill coalition troops later. Well, in Iraqi summer heat, after a few days of laying there, the bodies will puff up. They get super bloated and just nasty overall. But you can't always tell, especially if they're all covered up. Well, when you shoot bayonet kick a bloated body, they tend to pop, and out comes the nastiest smell and a disgusting liquid pus goo. Jesus, nothing smells that bad, and the goo pus gets all over your boots, or uniform, or rifle, or God help you, your mouth. Much vomit was spewed forth, many memories cemented forever. The feeling of not feeling anything after killing someone is crazy. It's not like you're stone cold, no emotion. But think of it as you're a waiter at a restaurant and you serve your customers. You don't think anything of it when it's happening. You just do and carry on. It doesn't hit you until later and you're like, mother sucker, I just did that. The emotion of everything is so bland when it happens but so raw when you take a step back. Whenever you have a buddy that gets killed, yeah, it's scary but it doesn't hit you until later. Every moment in that person's life had led up to that moment. It's concluded, over, done. Every first kiss, every Friday night football game, every person they ever had any contact or relationship with, everything they ever said, every plan they ever had or memory they had created came to a conclusion in a single moment that ended their entire existence. I took part in 78 separate attacks from hostile forces around Mosul in 2005. Lots of bad crap. But the one thing I near share is that one time I was in the turret of an M1114 HMMWV behind a M2.50 machine gun doing convoy security, and I looked in a vehicle as we cruised by and there was a little girl, probably 8, who had a healed up gunshot wound to the face. She was missing an eye. She was smiling broadly at me and waved at me emphatically. I just waved back. That little girl had the weight of the world on her shoulders and was smiling. I've never had a bad day since. There was also a kid that was cut deep to where his thumb was barely hanging onto his hand. I was in the turret again that day and the kid ran alongside the truck making a rapping motion with his hand. I tried to get my first aid pouch open so I could throw him my sterile bandage to wrap up his hand, but the old button, Vietnam era piece of crap, wouldn't come unsnapped. The little dude ran next to us for about a minute while I fricked with it. Finally I just slipped the Alice clips, tugged it off my vest and tossed the whole thing to him. He was smiling the whole time too and was very happy for the packet. It's like, frick man, we really fricked crap up over there. Why couldn't we have done more really good stuff instead of escorting Commander Douchebag and the whole fricking PR team to a school just so they could get some fricking photo ops with the poor kids to put in the newspaper back home? There was a dead Iraqi guy on the ground halfway covered with a blanket. After we shot him, I saw a pack of smokes in his shirt pocket and I remember reaching in there and taking them so I could hand them out to the guys. I even gave some to the other Iraqi prisoners we were watching at the time. It was one of the weird moments. Thinking about it, how strange would it be if your dead body was laying there and some guy came out and took your pack of smokes out of your shirt pocket? That morning, like most mornings, you put your smokes in your jacket and go out to face the day. You die and then some guy from another country casually takes them from you as you rot in the sun. Weird. As an infantryman, I had plenty of bad experiences in Afghanistan. Plenty I haven't told people. However, I had some very unique and beautiful experiences. I have never told anyone this story. My platoon was probably a month and a half into our 1-year-long deployment. The area we were responsible for patrolling was remote and poor even by Afghan standards. It would take us probably 2 hours by vehicle to get to our area of operations, the district we were responsible for patrolling. That was just getting to it, not including the farthest villages in the district we were responsible for patrolling. Since it would take us so long to get there, we would drive there and then set up shop in this abandoned school for 2-3 days, and run patrols out of there. One day, we returned from our regular day patrol. We had a couple hours of downtime before we would set out for our night patrol. It was late afternoon, early evening, and I was sitting outside under the Afghan sun with my body armor on, but no helmet, just taking in the scenery, looking out over the countryside. I saw these 3 girls, probably around 10-12 years of age, frolicking in a field, just being young girls. I remember they were dressed in brightly colored dresses and hijabs, one purple and one red. can't remember the other. They were maybe 150-200 meters away. The scene of them playing in this farm field, with mountains in the background, was a very idyllic setting. So I decided to try and take a photo of them. I had a small case on my body armor with my camera in it. I reached down to take it out and take a photo, but they scurried away. A minute or so later, they returned. So I tried again. Again, they scurry away. This repeats several more times. I remember thinking, damn it, stay still for a second so I can take a photo. Then I realized they were watching me. They knew I was going for my camera, and they would scurry away when I went for it. This was before I realized certain cultures' aversions to having their photo taken, let alone without their permission. It turned into a game. I would quickly touch my camera case, and they would scurry away, then come back giggling. Repeat. Then they started playing like a Simon Says game with me. They would make little motions with their hands, do the raccoon eyes, and whatnot. I would mimic them, and then they would look at each other giggling. Eventually, it got dark and they had to leave. I think about those little girls often. It helped realize the beauty in that country. Despite all the destruction and death, that was their home. That is where their lives would take place. What has become of their lives? I hope that they can know some semblance of peace in their lives. I responded to several complex suicide bombings, which resulted in hundreds of casualties, and while they bother me, they weren't the worst thing. There was a guy in my unit. Charles was his name. He had come from a really messed up background, but wore his heart on his sleeve. He got all of us a copy of Halo while we were downrange so that we could have LAN parties when we had time. He wasn't my best friend, but he was a good friend and a battle buddy. He was going through some rough times with the deployment and other personal things, and someone caught him with his loaded pistol in his mouth. Instead of sending him home, our UE demoted him, gave him extra duty, and took away his weapons for a few months. After he was given his weapons back, he resumed missions with us. We used to sit on the blue deck on CNS and smoke and talk about life. He told me that his fiancée had ended things with him, and he was taking it hard. He told me, specifically, that he wrote her a letter, and if she wouldn't take him back, he would kill himself. I hadn't yet been through any kind of suicide prevention training, so I wasn't sure how to respond. I told him that there are better ways to deal with the situation, but I didn't do enough. The last conversation that we had was about pulling the trigger on combatants. The last thing that he told me was that he didn't mind returning fire if he needed to, but if he ever saw someone killing an innocent person, then he would stop them himself. That night he put a 3-round burst into his head. Not a day goes by when I don't think about him and think about how I could have helped him, but didn't. We all knew he was suicidal, and none of us did a dang thing about it. Daily I think about him. Why didn't I do more? What could I have done better? I'm sorry for not doing enough, man. I didn't think you would do it.
Man, I sure do love great content, and I'm working on some of that over at Updoot, man. So you should go there right now. Go there. Go if you aren't subscribed to this channel, subscribe. Then go over to Updoot, man. Right there. You click right there. You click right there. You better do it. You better, so help me, you better go over there because you deserve something good. I put my heart and soul into this stuff, man. You don't even understand. No pressure.